Hello and welcome back to Citizen Speak. Let's talk about Flint, Michigan tonight. As we have the new year approaching, we still have many people who live in Flint who are going to be poisoned for the next inevitable future that they have because Governor Snyder and the emergency manager went ahead and shut the water off going from Detroit to Flint and started using the river water for Flint and their water sources. And what this did is the river water is a little bit more salty than the lake water that they were getting from Detroit. So the saltiness of the river water, well, it corrodes pipes. And the pipes in Flint, Michigan are held together like a lot of different pipes with lead soldering. And well, if you have corrosion in the pipes, that lead's going to leak out, and that's exactly what's happened. And Governor Snyder, for months and months, had been saying that there's no correlation between the water and the lead, and that there's no proof behind it at all. Anybody who had been coming out with information against or studies against Governor Snyder and the emergency manager and the company that oversees all of this, well, they were basically told to the public that these people aren't real scientists, or we'll discredit them in any way, shape, and form that we can. So as a result, we have extremely high levels of lead found in the children who live in Flint. And the doctor who did studies on the blood, he was discredited as well, who did studies on the blood in the children. So anybody who at all is trying to say anything against Governor Snyder or against the city manager or against this decision in general, that the pipes are corroding, that there's lead in the water, simply won't acknowledge it. They will do anything that they can to discredit it. Now, recently, Governor Snyder, he did come out with an apology, and it's so heartfelt that it'll make you weep and it'll bring you to your knees. Governor Snyder says this. He says, "I want Flint community to know how very sorry I am that this has happened. And I want all Michigan citizens to know that we will learn from this experience, because Flint is not the only city that has an aging infrastructure." Well, you see, it turns out that they knew beforehand that this was going to cause the pipes to corrode. This isn't a learning process. We've known that if you increase the saltiness of the water, or you change water from one source to another, and you don't treat it for the salty water, which is more corrosive to the pipes, well, they're going to degrade much faster. But we have a water study and a basically kind of like an environmental impact study that's done a year before the switch was made from Detroit's water to the Flint River water. And it was completely ignored, because who makes the decision for this water going from the Detroit water to the Flint River water? Well, that would be the emergency manager that Governor Snyder had put in place. And who does he report to? Only Governor Snyder. He doesn't have to give a damn about anybody else. He just goes, "Oh, hey, Governor Snyder, I want to do this." Governor Snyder goes, all right, go ahead and do it. Doesn't matter about any studies at all that come out, or who says that it's a bad idea. They don't have to poll the city to say, hey, this is what we need to do. And I get it that they wanted to find a cheaper source for their water for the town. I get it. But if you're going to change from lake water to river water, there's steps that have to be done in order to preserve the infrastructure that you're putting that water through. And still, even to this day, we had this flip back 5-6 months ago, and we just started to notice more problems, and people really started to get upset, and you started to see more stories about it in October. But we don't have anybody who's giving a damn about it up until now, when Governor Snyder is getting pressured about it. But up until then, we have the citizens come and they bring their jugs of water, or they bring bottles of water from before, or earlier in the year, and then now, and there's a complete discoloration in there, and nobody is caring about these citizens here. I live in Michigan, and it's an absolute shame that there's people who had no choice in the matter to switch from Detroit water to Flint water, who had no idea what was going on up until they started to feel a little bit sick, and their kids started to feel a little bit sick. So they had to go to the doctors and figure out what was going on. And then it comes out that, there's too much lead in your drinking water, and your kids are now poisoned with lead. Well, at a young age, when kids have lead that goes into their body, it causes learning disabilities, it causes autism. There's so many effects that lead has on the human body, and if you're a child and you have lead in your body, these damages are going to be irreversible. There's nothing now that can be done for these kids. They're going to slowly have their minds eaten away by the poison that's in their body now. And it doesn't matter if they move to a different city or a different state, this is going to stay with them. You can't just detox. You can't eat a bunch of quinoa and just have it leave your body. It doesn't work that way. The lead's going to stay in their system, and it's going to eventually just break them down. But, Governor Snyder, he doesn't care up until now, up until he starts to see that his favorability is going downhill. But thankfully, for the citizens of Flint, Michigan, the emergency manager and the Michigan Department of Environmental Quality director have stepped down. So even though they have created this atrocity, even though that people are going to die because of their decision, they've stepped down. They're not going to face any charges. So, they're fine. Don't worry about them. They're going to live a happy little life after this. And somebody might come up in the streets and say, you're kind of a turd. They don't care. They don't care at all. And Governor Snyder, there's been lawsuits proposed against him for enacting an emergency manager that was so reckless and so careless in the decision of switching over the Flint water from Detroit to Flint. And the decision is dismissed. It's not taken to court. And the reason being is because Governor Snyder's lawyer says, that was during his first term. Governor Snyder, he enacted that during his first term. It's now his second term. You just got to let the past go, man. It's okay. Don't worry about it. But no, we clearly see that it's completely negligence. Someone that the state of Michigan has entrusted to protect its people, to make choices in the best interest of the people, has completely failed the people. I don't know about you, but it's an absolute travesty that's happening in Flint, Michigan. Think about it this way. Okay, so we need water for just about everything that we do. You can't bathe in the water from Flint, Michigan. You can't cook with the water from Flint, Michigan. You can't drink the water from Flint, Michigan. You can't give it to your pets because they'll die of lead poisoning. You can't clean your home with the water from the tap because it's going to spread the lead around your house. You can't do anything with the water in Flint, Michigan because it's poisoned with lead. I mean, it's filled with rust and heavy metals as well, which we know are not good for the body in large quantities. But if you can't do anything with the water, how are you supposed to survive? How are you supposed to raise healthy children? How are you supposed to do anything in life and prosper? This was clear negligence on the part of Governor Rick Snyder and the city manager. So, I mean, we have this giant travesty in Flint, Michigan. And now what's going to happen is we're going to have to basically evacuate the people of Flint or ship them in water to use, because they certainly can't use the water that's in their piping. So we'd have to ship them in fresh water daily. And you can't simply flip the switch back from going from Flint water to Detroit water, because the damage is already done to the pipes. You're not going to reverse that. The pipes have already been corroded. The lead is already leaking out into the water. That's done. That ship has sailed. So you have a couple of options. You can either take every citizen out of Flint and move them to different areas across the state, or you can ship water in, so that way the kids can bathe with clean water, the family can cook with clean water, they can clean themselves with clean water and drink clean water, or you can rip out all the piping in Flint, every last pipe, and then replace it with brand new. Well, that's going to be extremely costly now, isn't it? And the whole reason why an emergency manager was placed in Flint by Governor Snyder was because Flint was over its head in debt. So the emergency manager came in and hoped to save money, but instead is making this much more costly than if the city were to have no emergency manager and were to just continue on the way that they were. This is much more costly. So what would you do here? I want to know. Tell me in the comments. Would you ship water in for the citizens? Would you ship them out of the city to different cities? Or would you replace all the piping? And how would we pay for it? You know, all of them are extremely costly. And there's no real right answer here. And just flushing the water isn't going to help anything. So let me know in the comments. I want to know what you guys think. I wish you all a happy new year. And, I just can't get over how horrible this is for the people who live there. And I'm glad that I don't have that problem where I live. I have extremely good water. But my heart goes out to those who are in that situation. And, if you know somebody who is living in Flint, see what you can do to help them. If I have friends and family over in Flint, then I'm going to do what I can as well. But it's clear to see that Governor Snyder is not equipped to do his job. This emergency manager idea was a complete fail. And now for every other state, they have a prime example of how much of a failure an emergency manager can be. All right, thank you so much for listening to Citizen Speak today. My name is Garrett Martin. I'm your host. You can find me on Twitter at CitSpeak. That's CITZ Speak. I'm also on YouTube or Spreaker or iTunes now. So, find me, listen to me, and let me know what you think on Twitter. That's where I respond to most people. All right, thank you very much.